All right, that's the car. She looks pretty good, but that's not why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is to find a reason not to buy this car. There's plenty of cars out there, and we're gonna do the things that most people don't do. That's why I brought a pocket flashlight. Right there. This is the area right behind the tire, and that's the first place you're going to start seeing rust. That's what we're looking for. The tire's gonna be kicking up mud, water, salt, whatever it is, up onto this area, and that's the first place it's going to rot. So that's what we're looking at right now, and this looks pretty good. And the reason why we're looking for rust is because it is so expensive to repair rust on the car. Come check out the VW that I looked at just recently. We're gonna show you the 5 stages of rust on a car by looking at this one. That little bubble right there, we're gonna call that stage 1 of rust. It just starts forming a bubble underneath that paint, and then come down here, you'll see that bubble starts to grow as that rust progresses. That's stage 1. Stage 2, that rust starts popping through the paint, and you can see that discoloration there. Right up here is stage 3. Pieces of metal are gonna be flaking off of the car. I would not buy a car with stage 3 rust, and I'll show you why. We're gonna go to stage 4 around the other side of the car, right at the top of this wheel well here. There it is, stage 4. Big chunks of metal are gonna be falling off this car. And then stage 5, right down here. Wow. You can put your fist right through the holes, and it can get dangerous because this is the structure of the car. I can still lift it right now, but pretty soon that's going to be rotting away also. Makes it very dangerous. You can see through some of the brake hardware, and some of the other parts under the car are going to be rusty and very expensive to repair. So if we're looking at a VW like that with that much rust, I'm walking away from that car without even opening it up and looking at it. I'm done at that point. Because rust is so expensive to deal with, we're not going to do it unless the car is valuable. And I mean either money or sentimental value. So if it's like a Mark III Supra, yeah, it's worth rust repair. Or if it's the 1987 Toyota Camry that you were conceived in, okay, that's got some sentimental value. But if it's just a random car on Marketplace, walk away. You don't need it. We can check rust off the list. Let's go to number 2. So back here on this part of the bumper is where a lot of collisions happen. I'm looking for this seam right between the bumper and the rest of the car. I want to make sure that this is flush and the gap isn't too wide. Looking at the same thing here on this bumper, it looks flush, a little bit off here, but it doesn't look like it was damaged or repainted. But one thing I did notice right around front here, this is something that I want to show you. This paint, if you look real close at the paintwork, this doesn't match here. This was done after the factory, so this was done by a body shop or something else. I can see drips here, and then the surface texture of the paint is wrong. Now this looks like an aftermarket grille, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Under the hood here is where we're going to see evidence of other collision repairs. So on the battery, on all of these plastic components that are supposed to be black, we're looking to see if any paint overspray has gotten on here, and that's a telltale sign that this thing has been in a collision and it's been repaired before. What I'm seeing here is original factory paint. Everything looks clean, but not overly clean. So it doesn't look like they're hiding something, so I'm happy about that. It looks like we haven't had any collisions that went unreported to insurance. As I mentioned, we have a modified grille, so I'm looking around the engine compartment now for other modifications, and I'm talking about a cold air intake, which you might see, anything else that's out of the ordinary in the engine bay. Plus we're going to look over here. Right up here you can see the strut has a spacer on top of it. Now if you zoom out, this is the top of where the strut should be, but you see this plate and it's SLO. If you know, you know. But this is a modified suspension. So this car actually has a 2-inch lift on the suspension. So suspension lift is a very serious modification to a car. It changes a lot about the way that it drives. And it also tells us a little bit about the way it has been driven. With a suspension lift like this, it's possible that they took this off-road and maybe there's some damage underneath. Or if it's been lowered, typically you're gonna see a car that's been lowered driving on a track or driving on the street as if it were a track. So it tells us that it's been used a little bit hard, used and abused, we'll call it. This car looks like it's been tastefully modified, but you got to be real careful with stuff like that. I would just say no to a car like that and walk away, because you don't know what type of components they put on there and the level of skill of the person putting it in. Usually it's a do-it-yourself job, and they didn't do a very good job. So in this case, I'm not scared of the car because I can fix whatever is wrong with it. But in your case, if you're not mechanically inclined, I would say walk away from this particular deal. It's just not worth it. Of course, we're going to check the oil. And what we want to look at here is not just the height, but also the condition of the oil. And it's right at the top mark. This is a Subaru, so especially on Subarus, you want to watch out for head gasket leaks. And we're going to look under the cap here. This is where the oil is filled. But under here is where you're going to find some evidence of water and oil mixing. I'll show you what that looks like. But this doesn't have any of that, so we're good to go. I'm going to move on to the radiator cap, which is right over here. Now a Subaru has two different caps, one that's on a radiator and one that's on this reservoir. This reservoir cap is actually what Subaru calls the radiator cap. So that's what I'm going to take off, and we're going to have a real close look at that with our flashlight. So I want to look inside there, and it's got green coolant. It's not the right color of coolant for a Subaru, so that's something. But what I don't see is any oily residue here at the top. If you saw anything oily or black, that would be an indication of a head gasket leak. Also right here on this radiator cap, which looks clean. So other than the wrong color coolant, I'm happy with the way that looks, but we're not done yet. I'm putting the cap back on, and this car is stone cold. It's been sitting at least overnight. So everything is ready to go for our next test. And that's going to be whether the cooling system pressurizes when you start the engine. So we're almost ready to do that. Let's go inside and start over there. I've got some bonus material if you have a scanner, so let's check it out. We're going to find the OBD port, which is right underneath here in the middle for a Subaru, but it could be anywhere within reach of the driver's seat. Okay. You want the key to be turned to on, but you don't want to start the engine just yet here. Let me turn off the fan, and then we're going to diagnose. All right, I'm going to automatically search. This has the auto function, and it sees that there's a Subaru Forester it's hooked up to. Let's go ahead and say yes to that. All right, and then we're going to do health report, and that's going to do a full scan of the entire car, everything in there, and it's just going to give us a list of codes. So while it's doing that, we can look at the dashboard here. Okay, so I've got the key on. We got the check engine light lit. That's what you need when the key is on, and then when you start the engine, that light is supposed to go out. So make sure that happens when you start it. Okay, so the scanner did a complete scan here. It found 9 systems, but it also found 10 codes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the different systems here have codes in them. So that's something to look at. We've got driver's airbag failure and side airbag failures. We've got CAN communication, steering angle sensor, so it's got a little bit of codes in there, but we don't see any codes in the engine or transmission, so I'm glad to hear that. Now, here's a little sneaky thing that people might do. We're going to go back out of this, and we're going to generic functions. That's going to be right here, OBD. And what we can do here is we can look at something that's going to tattletale on the owner if they cleared codes that were in there before we came out to look at it. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, it looks good. We've got readiness completed 8. This is the first thing that comes up here. You just get your VIN mil status. That's your check engine light. It's turned off. No DTCs, that's codes. And then we've got 8 monitors complete and 0 not complete. So if the owner had some codes, a check engine light was lit, and he wanted to hide that from me, he could have disconnected the battery or cleared those codes and then just left the car alone. I'd come out here, no check engine light, and think everything is good. But what you would see on these readiness monitors is that there would be some that would be incomplete. And those are the tests that the computer does to make sure there's nothing wrong with it, to set a code. So if they're incomplete, it doesn't know if there's anything wrong with it yet. So that's what we're looking for. But we're good here. We've got nothing incomplete, so we're ready to go on and start this car. Okay, we're finally ready to turn the key, and this is the last test that we're gonna do. We're gonna start it up, and we're gonna listen for any noises that just don't sound right, any rattling or ticking that happens when we start it up. Those are definite red flags, and you wanna say no to a car like that. So let's listen to this car and see what it sounds like. I don't hear any ticking or loud noises. Still a little bit loud because it's running at a higher idle to warm it up. Okay, the engine is still cold. We haven't ran it for more than a minute, but what I want to do now is open up the radiator cap to see if there's any pressure in there, and that'll tell us a few things about the engine. Ooh, and there is pressure in there. This coolant just sprayed out of right here, out of the radiator cap. So what it tells me is the engine is building pressure inside the cooling system, and this being a Subaru, it's got me a little bit worried. That could be the sign of an early head gasket failure, putting combustion gas into the cooling system and pressurizing it, and that would not be a good thing. At this point, I would say don't buy this car if you don't have mechanical experience, and if you do, you might tell the owner that you might want a little bit of a deal when you buy this car. So 2 red flags on this car. It's got modifications that are pretty heavy duty, and I wouldn't recommend this to a novice, and possible head gasket failure that I definitely wouldn't recommend unless you have a lot of mechanical experience, at least the ability to go further and test to see if you actually do have a failure here. For me, I'm going to buy the car because I'm going to make more videos about it. So if you want to see those, you can check them out right over here. As soon as they become available, we're going to see what's really wrong with this thing.